Forged over millions of years under intense heat and pressure, conditions have to be absolutely perfect for flawless natural gems to be produced. Collectors are willing to pay astronomical amounts of money for the world's most beautiful and rare jewels, and the past 15 years in particular have seen prices skyrocket. So, join me for today's video. We're going to take a look at 15 of the most expensive gems in the world. Number 15. The Sweet Josephine, $28.5 million. The diamond, known as Sweet Josephine, is a stunning pink stone that was most recently sold at auction in Geneva in 2015 for an impressive $28.5 million. It weighs in at 16.08 carats, and it's rated by the Gemological Institute of America as Fancy Vivid, and it's got a cushion-shaped cut. No one's entirely sure about this diamond's origins, and the furthest back it can be traced is to the previous owner who had it put up for sale, which was a family from the United States that had the precious rock in their possession for 15 years. It's not clear how they acquired it, but it's certain they made a decent profit on it, as when it sold, the Sweet Josephine broke several records. It became the largest cushion-shaped diamond to have ever been sold at auction, and one of just 3 fancy pink diamonds that weigh more than 10 carats that have been offered for sale in this way in the past 250 years, and by far the most that a stone of its kind has ever been bought for. Controversially, the new owner of the diamond was Joseph Lau, a convicted felon from Hong Kong who's been linked with allegations of bribery and money laundering. There have been questions surrounding the source of the funds that he used in recent years to buy the precious stones and artworks to add to his collection, and seemingly in an attempt to protect this investment, he renamed this diamond after his daughter Josephine, who was 7 years old at the time, and is now the diamond's legal owner. Number 14. Cartier Sunrise Ruby Ring, $30.4 million. While diamonds are undoubtedly the most expensive precious stones, there are plenty of other expensive gems too. The Sunrise Ruby, for example, became the most expensive ruby and the most expensive gemstone other than a diamond in 2015 when it sold for $30.4 million. Rubies are made of a type of aluminum oxide called corundum that contains quantities of chromium to give them their distinctive color. They are always red in color though, and those that form with other elements to produce different colors are instead called sapphires. Named after the poem of the same name that was written by a Sufi poet in the 13th century, the Sunrise Ruby was mined in Myanmar and after being cut weighs 25.5 carats. Its color is rated as pigeon blood, which for rubies is the best possible and has been mounted by Cartier alongside more than 5 carats worth of diamonds. In some ways, this gem is even rarer than the most expensive diamonds because its structure is seen as virtually perfect and something normally only ever found in much smaller crystals. Number 13. The Unique Pink, $31.6 million. In May of 2016, Sotheby's featured an extremely rare and stunning jewel in an auction, a diamond known as the Unique Pink, cut into a pear shape by Cora International, which is a company renowned for their work on some of the most valuable pieces. The finished product weighs 15.38 carats, and it took many months of cutting and polishing to complete it. Pink diamonds in particular are varied with their actual color and can be anything from a shade of purple to something more orange or red. Their coloration is also formed differently from others, as rather than being the result of presence of another atom like nitrogen or boron, it's caused by stress during the initial formation many millions of years ago. In the case of the Unique Pink, its color is a very unusual shade of energetic pink with a slight hint of red. It's also classified as a type 2A, which means it's as chemically pure as possible and is exceptionally transparent. It's for these reasons that there was massive excitement in the collector's world surrounding the imminent sale of this particular stone, and it would eventually go for $31.6 million. At the time, it became the largest pear-shaped fancy vivid pink diamond to have ever been offered at auction, and also became one of the most expensive pink diamonds per carat to have ever been sold at a publicly accessible event. Number 12. De Beers Millennium Jewel 4, $32 million. Offered for auction in 2016, the De Beers Millennium Jewel 4 is a virtually flawless blue diamond that at the time was the largest oval-cut fancy vivid blue diamond to have ever been put up for sale. It was first shown by De Beers in 2000 at the Millennium Dome in London to celebrate the beginning of the new millennium, and had originally been found in the Cullinan mine in South Africa. After being involved in a failed heist attempt while on display, the jewel, along with others that were on show, went into storage, and the first time it had been seen in public since then was when it was put up for sale at Sotheby's in Hong Kong. Blue is one of the rarest colors of diamonds, so any that become available immediately garner a lot of attention from collectors. When combined with the fact that this one is internally flawless and that it weighs 10.10 carats, there was a lot of interest in the stone, and the owners specifically chose Hong Kong as the place to sell it because it would be easier to appeal to Chinese buyers. In the end, it was sold for what was, at the time, a record-breaking $31.8 million, making it the most expensive gem to have ever been sold at an auction in Asia. While other blues have sold for more elsewhere, this sale was seen as proof that there's still worldwide demand for colored diamonds, and that in many cases they're even more appealing than non-colored ones. Number 11. The Zoe Diamond, $32.6 million. Another famous and extremely expensive blue diamond is one that's called the Zoe Diamond. As with many precious stones, its provenance is completely unknown. There's no record of which mine it came from or who originally owned it, nor does it seem anyone knows how it got its name. But instead, it appeared to come out of nowhere when it was put up for auction in New York in 2013 as part of the famous tycoon Paul Mellon's collection. Certified by the Gemological Institute of America as a fancy vivid blue diamond, which was the highest color grading possible, as well as being of extraordinary clarity, there was plenty of interest in the 9.75 carat stone, and it went on to perform far better than anyone had expected. In fact, it sold for more than double its estimate, with a final figure of $32.6 million, which at the time made it the most expensive blue diamond and the most expensive per carat for a diamond that had ever been achieved at auction. Furthermore, a portion of the proceeds from the sale, which included a number of other highly prized objects, was donated to a charitable organization that the former owner was a patron of. So while the sale of expensive jewels usually further enhances the wealth of those that had owned them, at least this one helped to benefit the local community. Number 10. The Orange, $35.5 million. Pure orange diamonds, which are often known as fire diamonds, are some of the rarest types of all, thought to be around 0.05% of all naturally colored diamonds, so the chance to own one is a highly sought-after thing by collectors. In November of 2013, a particularly special stone, simply known as the Orange, was offered for auction and sold for $35.5 million, which was double its pre-sale estimate. Weighing in at 14.82 carats, it came from a mine in South Africa and was by far the largest fancy vivid orange diamond to have ever been put up for sale. It's more than 3 times the size of just 2 others that have been sold. One of the reasons it's so special is that pure orange is so unusual, with most that have an orange color also featuring other hues. This orange comes from the presence of nitrogen when the stone first forms, and this means it's far more likely other elements are present too, which form other colors. Rarely do orange diamonds exceed 3 or 4 carats in size once they've been polished, and when this gem was displayed at auction, it was described as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and even experts who see thousands of stones per year hadn't seen anything like it before. Number 9. Queen Marie Antoinette's Pearl, $36.2 million. The French Queen Marie Antoinette was known for her extravagant lifestyle, and in particular her love of gems and jewelry. It's perhaps no surprise then that one of the pieces that she owned is the most valuable of its type in the world, not just because of its size and quality, but also because of its link with the Queen. Put up for auction in November of 2018, the 18th century pearl and diamond pendant, which was being sold alongside other pieces from her private collection, had originally been estimated to sell for up to $2 million. But once the event had finished, it sold for an incredible $36.2 million. This was by far the most ever paid for a natural pearl, and as well as gaining an elegant piece of jewelry, the buyer also bought a slice of history. During the French Revolution in 1791, the Queen managed to smuggle her prized jewels, which included this pearl, from Paris, where they were first taken to Brussels and then to Vienna to be looked after by her nephew, who was the Austrian emperor. She had, of course, planned on retrieving them when she escaped from France, but she was never able to do so, and the collection was instead passed to her only surviving child, Marie Theresa de France. It continued to pass down through generations of European royalty before being put up for sale, and with such closeness to the seats of power over more than 2 centuries, it's undoubtedly the most historically important pearl in existence. Number 8. The Princey Diamond, $39.3 million. Believed to have been first discovered more than 300 years ago on the Golconda mines in India, the Princey Diamond is the 4th largest known pink diamond in the world. At 34.56 carats, it's rated as a fancy, intense pink stone with a natural color and a VS2 clarity, and it has an unusual property that means it emits an orangey-red fluorescence when it's exposed to ultraviolet light. This is something that's only ever been seen in diamonds that originate from India, and the Princey is by far the largest pink diamond that exhibits it. The first known owners of the diamond were the royal family of Hyderabad, and it was first put up for auction by the family in London in the 1960s. From there, it was sent to the Paris store Van Cleet and Arpels, a jeweler, and it was then that it was renamed the Princey after the son of Sita Devi, who was the Maharani of Baroda. The most recent time that the diamond was put up for auction was in April of 2013, where it was sold for $39.3 million. It's a stone that's so unique and has such a storied history, though, that if it were to be put up for sale today, it'd likely fetch a far greater price, with some estimates suggesting it could easily break the record price for a pink diamond. Number 7. The Graf Pink, $46.1 million. The Graf Pink is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful pink diamonds in the world, and there's good reason why, when it was auctioned in Geneva, Switzerland in 2010, it sold for $46.1 million. It's not clear which mine it originated from or when it was first cut, and its provenance can only be traced back to the late 1950s when it was sold by Harry Winston, a celebrity jeweler, to a private collector. It remained with this one owner for 60 years before the auction, and during that time, despite being so rare and large, it remained unnamed. The 24.78 carat diamond has an emerald cut with rounded corners, which is a cut that's normally associated with white diamonds, but it can really bring out the beauty of a colored stone too. It's rated by the Gemological Institute of America as a fancy, intense pink, which is one of the highest color ratings possible. And it's got a purity rating of a Type 2A, which puts it in the top 1 to 2% of diamonds. If that's not impressive enough, the Graf Pink is set in a platinum ring, which has 2 flanking shield-cut diamonds. And it was hardly a surprise that when it was purchased by Lawrence Graf of Graf Diamonds for $46.1 million, it became the most expensive jewel ever sold at auction at the time. While this record has since been broken, this pink diamond remains as one of the most precious in the world, and if it's ever put up for sale again, there's a good chance it'll regain that record as the most valuable. Number 6. The Blue Moon of Josephine, $48.4 million. Discovered in a mine in South Africa in 2014, the Blue Moon of Josephine proves that it's not just the historic diamonds that can command huge sums, and that, for miners, the next great discovery can come at any time. Weighing 12.03 carats, it's a fancy, vivid blue diamond that's been classified as flawless, and at first, the owners weren't sure of the best way to cut it. It took almost a year to decide on how best to show its attributes, and once it had been perfectly polished, it was entered into auction in Geneva in November of 2015. Holding the record as being the largest cushion-shaped fancy vivid blue diamond to have ever appeared at auction, it's also very unusual in the way that under ultraviolet light it displays a red phosphorescence. It would go on to be bought by Hong Kong billionaire Joseph Lau for just over $48.4 million, and in the same ways he did for a pink diamond he bought just a day earlier, he named this one in honor of his daughter. At the time, this was the highest ever price per carat paid for a diamond, the most expensive jewel sold at auction, and the most valuable diamond of any color to have been sold, although this is a record that it would only hold for less than a year. Number 5. The Winston Pink Legacy, $50.7 million. Bright pink diamonds are extremely rare, so anytime one is put up for auction, it's virtually guaranteed to sell for an astronomical figure and set records in the process. In 2018, the Pink Legacy diamond was sold at a Christie's sale for just over $50 million and instantly became the most expensive pink diamond for its weight, costing the buyers a massive $2.6 million per carat. The diamond was originally found in a mine in South Africa in 1918 by the De Beers Mining Group, and for a long time it was owned by the Oppenheimer family who ran the company. With a weight of 18.96 carats, it's a cut-cornered rectangular diamond which is mounted in a platinum ring and is a fancy vivid pink in color, a rating given to 1 in every 100,000 diamonds. Christie's called the Pink Legacy as good as it gets when they were auctioning it, and the eventual buyer was the American luxury brand Harry Winston. The company was acquired by Swatch in 2013 and since then has embarked on a diamond purchasing spree, and they're renaming each one of them after the company, hence the new title for this diamond, the Winston Pink Legacy. Number 4. The Oppenheimer Blue, $57.5 million. The Oppenheimer Blue Diamond is believed to have originated in the Premier mine in South Africa, which at the time was owned by the De Beers Mining Company and therefore controlled by the Oppenheimer family. The Oppenheimer name is synonymous with diamonds after Ernest Oppenheimer joined forces with American financier J.P. Morgan and took control of virtually the entire diamond market in the 1920s. By restricting availability, the insured prices remained constant, and their company was responsible for some of the most impressive diamond discoveries ever. The company passed to Oppenheimer's son, Harry, in 1957, along with his cousin Philip, who became head of the London-based Central Selling Organization. It was here that the blue diamond became the pride and joy of Sir Philip Oppenheimer, after whom the stone is named, and he eventually sold it to a jeweler for an undisclosed price in the 1990s. It's a rectangular cut diamond that's 14.62 carats and rated as a fancy vivid blue color, which is the highest possible color grading given by the GIA. It's a remarkable stone, not just because of its size, but because of its saturation, something that's only seen in about 1% of blue diamonds, which themselves are quite rare in the first place. It's set in a platinum ring with trapeze-shaped diamonds on either side. It's often referred to as the gem of gems by those who work in the industry. The jewelers held on to it until they felt the market conditions were right, and when they did finally put it up for auction, it was the largest of its kind to have ever gone under the hammer. In 2016, it sold for a staggering $57.5 million, which at the time shattered the record for the most expensive gem to be publicly sold, although a record it would only hold on to for less than a year. Number 3. The Pink Star, $72 million. The Pink Star diamond became the most expensive gemstone in the world in 2017 when it sold for just under $72 million at a Hong Kong auction. Not only was this a record for the diamond, but it also became the most expensive thing to have ever sold at auction in Asia. So what makes this gemstone so impressive that it's worth more than most people will ever see in their lifetime? The answer is simply its size and color. From the moment the stone was found in a De Beers mine in South Africa in 1999, they knew they had something special. Uncut, it weighed 132.5 carats, and it was the largest diamond to have ever been rated as vivid pink. The process of cutting the rough stone took 20 months, where every move was meticulously planned to ensure nothing went wrong with this incredibly rare diamond. The decision was made to do a mixed oval brilliant cut, which involves a step-cut crown and a brilliant cut pavilion, and the finished piece was finally unveiled in a public ceremony in Monaco in 2003. The final piece was 59.6 carats and named the Steinmetz Pink after the company that was responsible for creating it. For a time, it was displayed in the Smithsonian's The Splendor of Diamonds exhibit alongside a number of other incredible diamonds, but in 2013 the owners decided it was time to find a buyer. The initial auction that year saw a bid of $83.1 million, but the purchaser failed to pay for it, so it was relisted in 2017. That time, the auction went without a hitch, and the diamond was purchased by Chow Tai Fook Enterprises, a conglomerate that owns interests across the spectrum of industries, who renamed it the CTF Pink Star. Number 2. Wittelsbach Graf Diamond, $80 million. The first records of the Wittelsbach Graf Diamond come back from the 17th century when it was sold to Louis XIV of France. It's got a rare blue color and it weighs 35.56 carats. The stone has a royal history, having been passed down through families since the 1600s, and it went from France to Spain and over to Germany, where it accompanied the German King Louis III to his burial place in 1921. At some point in the 1930s, it was sold to raise money for the German government, and here things get mysterious. No one seemed to know who had bought it, and it was replaced in the museum where it once had been by a piece of blue glass. Rumors of the actual diamond changing hands were rife in the following decades, until in 1962 when it reappeared at a jeweler's in Belgium. It was sold in 2008 for $23.4 million, and to the dismay of diamond historians, the new owner decided that it should be recut, since it had originally been done in the early 1600s. The resulting stone, now 21.06 carats, meant that both the color and quality were improved, and the estimated price skyrocketed to an estimated $80 million if it were ever to be put up for auction again. Number 1. The Hope Diamond, $200 to $250 million. The Hope Diamond is one of the most famous jewels in the world, having changed hands between owners in India, France, England, and America in the past 4 centuries. It has also become synonymous with bad luck, so it's often been thought to be cursed. The stone weighs in at 45.52 carats and is the largest deep blue diamond in the world. The color is described as a magnificent sky blue and it emits a red glow. The first records that mention it come from back in 1668 when King Louis XIV of France, a renowned diamond collector, bought it. It went missing a century later in the chaos surrounding the French Revolution, and it reappeared in London in 1812. After being sold on to various owners in the following years, it made its way over to America when it was purchased by an American heiress called Evelyn Walsh McLean. Wanting to make the diamond even more special, this is when it was put into its current setting, surrounded by 16 white diamonds and hanging on a chain made with 45 diamonds. It was acquired by the Smithsonian Museum in 1958, where it remains, and despite it never having been sold on the open market, to give an idea of value, it's currently thought to be insured for around $250 million, and would be expected to go for that if it was ever to be put up for sale. The curse of the diamond, though, luckily hasn't affected the museum, but there are numerous stories of owners beset by misfortune over the years. The French merchant who supposedly took the original stone from the eye of a Hindu idol in India and returned it to France where he sold it to the king was apparently mauled to death by dogs. King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette were beheaded in the French Revolution, and Evelyn McLean had a miserable life after buying the diamond, with her son being killed in a car crash, her daughter committing suicide, her husband leaving for another woman, and she herself ended up in an asylum. I'll see you next time.
Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.